Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen's Memories of Making Movies Keep Calm and Be a Superstar edition. You may recognize me as that guy who appears in some of the Silver Spleen's commentary videos. This is the fourth part of my series of experiences making the Hong Kong comedy Keep Calm and Be a Superstar. Let me wrap this up today with some anecdotes and observations from my filming experience. Hong Kong movies have a reputation for being very by the seat of your pants, especially compared to big budget Hollywood movies, which are very meticulously planned and executed. For Hong Kong movies, especially comedies, the script seems to be written or rewritten over and over again as the filming is going. At least for a peon like me, I didn't get the script till I showed up that morning. And inevitably, whatever was on the paper in the morning when they gave it to me was definitely changed numerous times over the course of the day. So sometimes lines were rewritten, scenes were changed, some wordings were dropped, depending on how it looked on camera, etc. And after a few days of this, I definitely noticed a pattern. If any of the lines were changed, it inevitably meant that my lines were reduced and people like Eason's lines were increased. But this totally makes sense. People are paying money to see Eason Chan, not this guy, right? This reminded me of stories I had heard about filming of Star Trek the original series, where the supporting cast members were always complaining about William Shatner stealing their lines. But in my case, I totally understood it and I'm not complaining. One of the things I paid attention to was the technology of professional filmmaking, especially in the modern digital age. Nowadays, the cameras are all digital, and the director is able to watch everything that the camera captures on an LCD screen while it's happening, and then immediately replay it over and over again to see if it came out right. And then he can decide if he wants to reshoot or proceed to the next scene. This saves a lot of trouble, and basically they can confirm if it's a good take immediately and move on directly to the next shot without wasting a lot of time or money. To me, one of the coolest things was the fact that while we were making the film, sitting nearby there was always an editor with a MacBook Pro, and he would actually grab all the latest takes and then he could put together a rough cut on the fly, even with music included, so probably some placeholder music. And every once in a while when we were waiting for the cameras to move, the director could just walk up and then check how that scene played and fit into the scenes they'd maybe shot previously. It actually looked pretty damn close to the finished product. Of course, they have to go back and fix the sound and maybe do color correction, and if there's any special effects, that'll take a long time to put in. But for a movie maybe with no special effects, you could actually crank out a pretty decent version, within the day of filming. The big exception is, of course, if there's any green screen. So all that stuff we filmed on the Eiffel Tower, etc., I have no idea how that's going to look because it's going to take them a while to fit it in with the backgrounds and whatnot. While I'm on the subject of green screens, they did set up a green screen backdrop for some still photo shooting on that last day that I was in a studio. And that was actually pretty cool because this is basically, I think, the promo stills that they would use for the poster and other promotional photos. So it was basically all the lead actors doing cool poses and kind of hamming it up, and I'm really eager to see how these turn out. So my final day shooting was actually almost the end of the entire shoot. I think they had maybe 1 or 2 extra days with only a few of the cast members. So this day was actually the last day for not just me, but a couple other main people in the cast. This day we shot in a CrossFit gym in Kwun Tong, which was dressed up to look like the imitation JC Stunt Team Training Center. It was actually pretty cool because we weren't stuck out in the boonies. Actually, my wife and kid could come visit me on the set without having to travel to the ass end of Hong Kong. And it was actually pretty cool so they could see me being a movie star. One cool thing that I guess is a tradition in filmmaking is that when they finish the final scene for one of the main casts, the director will shout out, "Okay, this is Danny Chan's last scene in the film. Thanks, Danny," and everyone stops and claps. In my case, Danny's last scene was also my last scene, so luckily for me, the director actually realized after he said that, and he said, "Oh, and by the way, it's also Rafi's last scene too. Let's clap for him." Let me take the opportunity to acknowledge and thank the cast and crew members that I had a chance to work with. Everyone on the crew was very professional and worked really hard. My 5 shooting days were spread across about a month-and-a-half period. So maybe 1 day this week, 1 day next week, skip a week, and then another day. And that was tough, 12-hour days, etc. But I really shouldn't complain because a lot of these cast members, and definitely the crew, they were there every day. So maybe 6 days in a row, maybe a day off here and there. And not only were they there for the 12 hours I was shooting, but they were there a couple hours early to set up, and a lot of the guys had to stay late and do prep for the next day. So kudos to them for working their asses off. And even though I don't speak Cantonese really well, and some of these guys didn't speak English, they were all very nice and friendly, and accommodating to me, especially as a non-Chinese speaker. And thanks to the assistant directors and stuff who actually took the time out to translate stuff that was announced to make sure that I wasn't clueless and not understanding things. And despite what I said about Hong Kong having this seat-of-your-pants reputation, these guys were actually super professional. For example, the costume people were always checking my outfit to make sure that it was consistent from day to day to day. So they make sure that my hat is on the same way and my tie is tied the same way. And I was actually really surprised by the level of detail. So actually, in fact, on one of the later days of shooting, I forgot to wear my wedding ring, and they noticed. So that just tells you how meticulous they were. They actually take pictures of your hands and your whole outfit, and then they check back later on to make sure that it matches. So amazingly, not every film crew in Hong Kong is as sloppy as these guys. Okay, before I wrap up, I'm sure some of you guys want to know some juicy stories about working with Eason Chan, Danny Chan, or Lee Rong-hao. I've actually known Danny for a long time, and he's always been a really nice guy, very down to earth. And in this film, he and I had a lot of scenes together. So between shots, we caught up a lot. He even put up with all my stupid questions about Shaolin soccer and his Bruce Lee TV series, etc. As for Lee Rong-hao, actually he was a pretty nice guy, but we didn't really talk that much. I can speak Mandarin, but he can't speak English, and somehow, despite the fact that I could speak to him in Mandarin, we just didn't talk that much. And I think the fact that I have literally no idea about any of his music probably was impacted that as well. As for Eason, he was actually really cool. I'd met him once or twice before, but only briefly, and I definitely wouldn't call us any kind of friends or acquaintances. But this time we actually had a lot of time working together, and I got to know him a little bit, in a professional way at least. And as he grew up in the UK, he has a very proper British accent, but he's also really super down to earth and friendly. And so just being around him when he's joking and having fun on the set was pretty cool. And I have to actually say, honestly, I was really impressed with his acting skill. So you think, okay, he's a pop star, he's a singer or whatever, but as far as being an actor, at least compared to me, he was like a super professional. He could just chew up, a really long piece of dialogue, spit it out, and deliver it really well. And I think the most important thing is he could do the emotion the same every take. So like maybe he had to deliver a whole line and then do it again from a different angle, or he screwed up something at the end and he had to do it again. But he could actually recreate the delivery speed and the intensity and the emotion the same every time. And to my semi-novice eyes, actually I was like, whoa, I totally couldn't do that. And literally like on my 5-word sentence, I couldn't do that. So there's no way I could do it on like a 5-line dialogue part.
I want his Maggie too! I want to Maggie too!
So serious props to Eason for his impressive skills. Last but not least, let me say thanks again to Vincent Kok for putting me in another of his films. Because of my work here in Hong Kong, I actually am very lucky to get to meet a lot of Hong Kong film industry people. And of all of them that I know, Vincent is actually one of the most involved in the film industry. He's really been in tons and tons of movies over decades, and he's literally worked with every A-lister you can think of. And not just that, but in front of the camera and also behind the camera, he's been involved in some really big projects, some of the top Hong Kong movies ever made, things like Shaolin Soccer, obviously, a lot of the Stephen Chow movies from the 90s, and those just also happen to be some of my favorite Hong Kong movies too. So it's really cool that I got to know him, and not only that, but then now had the chance to work with him again. So definitely big thanks to Vincent. It's really cool. I keep reminding myself, 20 years ago I was watching Love on Delivery on Laserdisc in San Francisco, and now I'm actually working with that guy in the movie who helped write the screenplay and then actually was a character in some of those movies. So as a Hong Kong film nerd, that's just totally cool, and I really value this experience. Okay, that's it for Memories of Making Movies Keep Calm and Be a Superstar edition. If you have any questions or comments or hate mail, please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this, please let us know, give us a thumbs up. And if you just happen to find this randomly, please consider subscribing to the Silver Spleen. Don't worry, I'm not the normal guy. He's much more entertaining. And last but not least, please, please, please consider watching Keep Calm and Be a Superstar, either in the theater, on iTunes, Amazon, Netflix, whatever it is. Just watch it legally. Watch it on the plane, watch it on the boat. But whatever you do, don't steal this movie. It actually really hurts the industry, and it will get you your movies in return. So you're actually hurting yourself if you're stealing. So just try to see it legitimately, and hopefully it'll lead to more and better movies. Okay, that's it for now. Check out some other Silver Spleen videos, and if you haven't watched the previous editions of Keep Calm and Be a Superstar, Memories of Making Movies, check those out as well, and I'll see you guys the next movie I'm in.